Good afternoon, CAFS crew. I hope you guys are really well, and welcome back to another mini PL session with me. Today we're going to talk about the superpowers of feedback. And if you have followed me for a little while, you would know how I absolutely love to provide feedback to my students and what that looks like. But it's a really timely reminder. We're in week 9 of an 11-week term. I think it's going to be something that is top of mind, and I'm pretty sure you would have a little pile or a big pile of marking sitting on your desk. So look, feedback is all about what our students, the feedback that we can give them to help them move forward on their journey. Same for us as a teacher. We're given feedback about what we may have done well, what we could do to improve, what to do in the future, some strategies, some changes. That's exactly what we need to provide our students. So feedback is so essential, and it's really critical in helping our students work out where they are right now, what we can actually do to help improve, and where they kind of need to be. So it's really bridging that gap between where the kids are now and where we want them to be. And the gap between that is really, really crucial to provide the kids really explicit feedback. And, my journey of feedback looked quite a few different things. So back in the day when I first started teaching, I would have, a whole pile of papers. We often did like exams with all of our students from 7 to 10 PE. We would have multiple choice questions, short answer questions, and literally it was either tick or across and then maybe a mark at the side. That was the sheer amount of feedback that we were providing our kids. And look, I think that still happens in schools today, that there's a tick or across on that page, and that is literally the feedback that our kids get. So you probably have one of these lovely red pens in your hand at some point when you're marking. If you know me personally, you know how I feel about red. Red, danger, red, bull. I don't know. I just have this thing about red. I think it makes me look a bit ethnic. So I always say I hate red, but I hate red as a color. So no offense, red, but red, I always think, I don't know where it came from. Let me know if you know where this idea of providing feedback to our students or providing a mark, whether a tick or a cross, was in red. I really don't know where that came from, but I think I really binned my red pens probably about 10 or 12 years ago, because I wanted my students to have really explicit feedback. So I know that I've worked with lots of teachers before, and some of you guys, and you're telling me that feedback takes a really long time. Marking takes a really long time. But what I want to kind of change for you guys today is your whole mindset around feedback. I loved marking, and I still do love marking, looking at my own children's work, or looking at some of my, teachers inside the CAFS collective, some feedback that they're giving to their students. But it does take time. It is a very onerous process, but it has so much valuable information that we can provide to our students. So feedback should provide our students with really explicit details about what they can do to move forward. So those crosses that we have on their page, the kids' page, or the big ticks, I haven't used a tick or a cross for a really long time. And now that I'm not in the classroom, I've provided you guys lots of strategies about what that looks like. So if you're in Strive, you would know there's a whole module on feedback. Module 8 is all about feedback. If you haven't signed up for Strive, it's always available to you guys. If you head over to learnnet.com/Strive, you'll see a whole module about feedback and what I really show you about how and what it should look. But why we're providing it is really important, because it gives the kids valuable steps, valuable feedback to move them forward in their journey. So gone are the days where we have lots of crosses on the page, we might have a mark, and that's it. And I have worked with teachers who just did that. They just had that mark. I'm like, where's the feedback? Where's the feedback? Oh, that's my mark. No, a mark doesn't give the kids much. The mark doesn't give the kids information about what they can do to move forward. It's like a big, big red cross. No, this is wrong. This is wrong. It's really powerful. I think that might provide, some powerful negative feedback to our kids. But like I said, it does take time. But if you invest in a little bit of time, I'm not saying you sit there for days and days and days and provide feedback to every single one of those kids' responses. It's really about working out some really clear strategies to provide them with feedback. Because at the end of the day, they're going to be able to use that feedback to move forward in their journey. And if you've followed me for a little while, you would also know that I absolutely love and obsessed. My second obsession in my educational career is with formative assessment. So Dylan William, if you haven't followed, any of his work, absolutely, king of formative assessment alongside his colleague, Paul Black. Their research on formative assessment and feedback has made some really groundbreaking changes in education. And I think for me, that's where this idea of shifting what I did with feedback really kind of moved forward. Shirley Clark is also another amazing educator if you want to check her out. She also has some great tips about feedback. But feedback really provides our students with practical steps from where they are right now to move them forward in their journey. So with feedback, you could give it in terms of a code. And I've done that sometimes. I've done like a little code, a plus or a minus or some other code that I've used to give my kids feedback. You might also do a code in terms of like punctuation, spelling. But what Paul Black and Dylan William also provide to us is that we don't have to mark all the bits of the work. We should be just focusing on a couple of things at that point. And I think, if you've worked with me, you'll know that I provide extensive feedback for my students, especially my seniors. And I think it was just one of those bits that were just part of my classroom because I knew how valuable it was. But I also made it more streamlined. As you become more experienced, to work out better ways to actually provide that feedback. So the first thing that we often did was, and being relieving head teacher, also being a leader, when I worked in Sydney, to say, let's make this so much more streamlined. Let's first of all print off our marking guidelines on a coloured sheet and have it as a little A5 and then staple that to all of our kids' responses. So you'd have your handy stapler out and we would staple and go, okay, sweet, we've got our marking guidelines there ready to go. We also have at the bottom of those marking guidelines what I call win feedback. And win feedback was developed by me. I created a strategy to help my students with some feedback. So win, if you haven't followed along, you would know that it stands for, what the kids have done well, improvements to be made, and then necessary actions to move forward in their journey. So you may have seen that inside strategic approaches to the IRP, in one of our modules on the assessment, as well as exploring your Wellbeing CAFS. But as I said before, a whole module inside Strive, really unpacks what that feedback looks like inside WIN. So basically, WIN is just a little acronym to help guide us in terms of just some ideas that we're going to give the kids about how they've gone in that assessment task or in that assignment, whatever it might be. So as I said before, the W stands for what I've done well or what the student has done well. And typically, towards the end of kind of being in the classroom, I started to change that a little bit. So I said, I'm going to get the kids to do that for themselves sometimes, or I'm going to give them feedback on what they've done well. So you might just, have a look through their response and go, okay, these are a couple of things that I've been able to find that I can really say, well done. This is a great job. This is what you've done well. I then go to the I and I go, okay, my I stands for improvements to be made. Okay, what improvements have I made from this? Instead of the big red pen, crossing through every single thing, your hand gets sore or whatever else. It's just some simple ideas, simple strategies that maybe some tweaks the kids need to make, some general ideas. Okay, you might need to work on your glossary of keywords. Another improvement to be made might be clear paragraph structure. So that clear peel paragraph structure. Maybe some of your syllabus terminology or your examples might not have been on point. Maybe fix it up here. So that's what improvements to be made means. And then the gem of it is really the last part. So necessary actions to improve. What am I going to do to actually improve? Here's what I've done well. Here are the things I need to improve on. But now for me as a student, this is what I got my kids to do is mainly, 95% of the time, what do I need to do now from that feedback? What's my job? What's my role in actually moving forward in my journey? Because we've all been there and done it. We've seen the big pile of assessments in our bin at the front of the classroom or in the recycle bin outside, or sometimes in the playground. You see assessment tasks all over the playground with, all of that work that you've put into it, that the kids have put into it, but, you know, they don't care. They throw it out. So we really want our feedback to be meaningful. And as I mentioned, this pen needs to be binned. Get rid of the red pen and start to incorporate some really practical, positive strategies with our students. So that was our first step. Quickly printing off the marking guidelines with our win feedback at the bottom, something I introduced, over our faculty, but also in Sydney. And that was our quick way to give feedback to the kids, really efficient, provide them with some main strategies for them to actually improve. Then what we did was do what's called wide reading. So you'd have a glimpse through how the kids have gone, and then you'd probably have it into 3 piles, like a low, mid to high pile. You might have kids, might have 2 to 3 out of 8, 4 to 5 out of 8, maybe 6 to 8 out of 8. And you kind of have those 3 piles and go, okay, now I'm going to have a bit of a look. I'm going to start to create some benchmarks. And if you've done HSC marking before, and if you're a senior marker, you would know what that looks like. Creating benchmarks is like, this is the standard. This is the standard that we're looking for to give an 8 maybe out of 8, or to give a 7 out of 8, maybe to give a 5 out of 8. What am I looking for to give that 5? Or what do the kids need to do to get a 3 out of 8? The ones are easy, just 1 point. And if you have been following me for a little while, you would know that one relevant point related to the question is 1 mark for our kids. We wanted to be able to provide that quick snapshot, high, medium, low, or high, mid, low, to then kind of work out your benchmarks. Okay, this is like where I'm starting from. This is what I'm kind of, if I see a response, I'm not comparing it because each student's response is very unique. If you're a HSC marker, you would know what this looks like. And inside Marking Experience in CAFS, if you're thinking about joining us for that whole day of marking, it is like the real thing. We'll unpack that with you. My markers are highly experienced and will show you what that looks like in the real world at HSC marking. So if you're interested in that, you can head over to learnet.com/marking CAFS, and you'll be able to join us for a whole big day where I facilitate the whole day, but you'll have your the HSC markers in there with you. So those high, medium, low piles are on your desk or wherever on the floor. Then you've got your benchmarks worked out. Then you might start marking. And look, you wouldn't start from let's do all the high ones, let's do all the mediums, let's do all the lows. You would just probably put them all back together and go, okay, well, how are these kids going according to the criteria? Are they meeting this? And I wouldn't, something that I also will suggest to you guys, and we'll unpack this with you inside Marking Experience in CAFS, is to go with that global marking, rather than being really picky and go, oh, hang on, this 1 point, oh, have they really nailed it? I don't know. This 1 point here, oh, where am I sitting? We get really confused. So is it in that mark range? Okay, so it's in the 1 to 3. Okay, we really think it's probably more of a 2 out of an 8 than a 3 or a 1. And then kind of working out where those kids' responses fit within that marking scheme. So that's probably what you would do, and providing the kids feedback, explicit feedback about what they're doing well. The kids need to be praised for that, rather than all of this negativity and this is wrong, cross here, cross here. You get my drift. We want to be able to give the kids really explicit feedback, what they've done well, what they need to do to improve on, not every single thing that they need to do to improve on because they'll get overwhelmed. And then necessary actions to improve. What am I going to do like tomorrow? What am I going to do next week to actually improve on my answers and my ability and my skills in answering these questions? Now, again, if you're inside Strive, you would know what this really looks like, but I have some tools that I've provided to you guys to make your life a lot easier with your marking. So some stamps that I've had made up that give my kids some feedback on like the glossary of keyword. Have you linked it back to the question? Have you provided knowledge and understanding of the syllabus as the, really explicit examples? And I literally had these stamps made up. So that's a really great way to go as well. I also use Shirley Clark's strategy of tickled pink and green for growth. I don't really like the word tickled pink. It's a bit weird. So I've actually changed it to pink for positive and green for growth. So instead of having my red pen in my pencil case, I actually don't have a green one here to show you, but I would literally either buy, a pink felt tip pen for pink for positive, and then a green. I have a green but a green for growth. This is what this is what I've done well in pink, and what I need to do to improve. My teachers provided that feedback in green. Game changer. Your kids will absolutely love it. You need to tell them what you're doing. All the things that you've done well is in pink. The things that you need to do to improve on is in green. And showing the kids that kind of coding is really crucial to then go, okay, well, this is my feedback, rather than all these red crosses and numbers on the page. Don't mean a whole heap to the kids. Something that I'll also challenge you guys on is holding back on your marks. This is something I'd really encourage you guys to start doing. So I obviously have been involved in professional learning for formative assessment. I've written a book that I'm hoping to publish this year. Who knows how I go? Let me know later. Ask me later. But I think it probably wasn't until I worked at a large senior campus that I kind of went, okay, all this feedback that I'm giving my kids, it's not going anywhere because they still see that number on that page. So I started to do a bit more research, and I started to watch a couple of Dylan William again, a couple of his clips around feedback, and they did a big study when they first published some of their work on formative assessment about feedback. So you can either have the mark, you can either have the mark and the feedback, you can have marks only. And then reveal the mark, feedback only, then reveal the mark, quite a few different things. But what they did in their study was realize that as soon as the kids saw that mark, they completely switched off. So they got amazing feedback from their teachers, really comprehensive. But as soon as the kids saw that mark, all of that feedback went down the drain, it didn't mean anything. So my challenge to you guys, as you're marking right now, you're marking your community and family studies students' work, your Year 11s probably. You might even have a sneaky Year 12 assessment task in there. I want you guys to be challenged by two things. No red pen is one, but also is to hold off on your marks. And what that really means is don't give the kids their mark until they read their feedback. So we started to implement a strategy, and hopefully I'll have a whole separate podcast episode on this, but we actually used Post-it notes. So we would mark their work, and we would record it in Central. Many of you guys use Central. We would record it, would actually break it down. So rather than just have the full mark, out of 30, would go question 1, 5, question 2, 6, question 3, 8. I'm not very good at math, so you get my drift, out of 30, and then record their marks in Central in our mark book. So once we did that, we then got the kids to say, okay, based on the feedback from us on your win feedback, I want you to read your win feedback. What do you think you got as a mark out of 8, out of 6, out of 5, according to the marking guidelines? So we had to train my marking guidelines, how to read it, how to work out where it's sat. You don't just kind of go, well, it's tick, 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 tick. Okay, gets an 8, or they've got some spelling mistakes, or their paragraphs aren't that good. I'm only going to give them a 6. We actually trained the kids on marking guidelines, and they made a judgment, with their Post-it notes, and said, okay, I think this response that I gave that day was a 5 out of 8 or a 2 out of 6, whatever it might have been. And tedious, I know, and you say, Kell, we don't have time for that. But they had to come up to us. We set some work, some work that the kids, self-paced learning, they were working on something else. And we had a mini interview with them and said, what do you reckon? Tell us how you thought. And based on the feedback that the kids were giving themselves, they were pretty much spot on. In fact, some of the kids were actually a little bit lower than what they actually were awarded. So holding back your marks is so powerful because it gives the kids an opportunity to really engage with what you've done with their feedback. So that extensive work that you do through your win feedback, through all of the ideas that you give to them on their page, they can really have a think about it first. They then can judge it, so that they're engaging with marking guidelines, which is a great tool for our seniors to have, even our junior kids to have those skills, to then make a judgment on what they think they got based on that feedback. And look, when I did this with a few colleagues, they were hell-bent against it, like, Kell, we don't have time for this. What are you making us do? But the feedback from our students, our Year 12 kids, Year 12 PE kids we had actually, were some of the best conversations I was having with young people about their learning, about how they prepared for the task, how they felt when they did the task, their results at the end. But the most important part was, what are they going to do now to move forward in their journey? What are they going to do with that feedback? And I think, if you guys can literally take those two strategies, bin the red pen, and also hold back your marks, and then reveal them to the kids after they've engaged with their feedback. Their comments that I'm talking about are two really big things that I think will make a huge shift in what you do in your CAFS classroom, but also with your juniors, because we know that if we prepare our kids from the beginning, from year 7, in year 8, 9, and 10, we're going to have maximum success in year 11 and 12. There's no point in saying this stuff in year 11 and 12, or even year 12, and go, okay, we now expect you to write this way and to be prepared like this. Train them early, and then they have all those tools under their belt to then approach the HSC and year 11 really successfully. So if you have been thinking about changing the way you do your marking, the way you provide feedback to your students, I would absolutely love to open this conversation. I'd really like for you guys to send me a DM, let me know. You can even send me an email, contact@thelearnette.com, to have a conversation, an open conversation with other colleagues about what feedback looks like in CAFS and what we can be doing to work really a lot smarter, but also more efficiently and strategically for our kids. So you might have heard that we have opened again for marking experience in CAFS. And if you would like to learn more about that, you can head over to learnette.com/marking CAFS. And literally is simulating exactly what it's like online. We know that marking is online. HSC CAFS marking is online now. It has been for 6 years. And the senior markers that will take you through that opportunity are very experienced in working online. And you guys will simulate what it's really like to do HSC marking. So if you haven't been able to do HSC marking before, if you're brand new at teaching CAFS, you haven't taught CAFS before, it doesn't matter where you are in your CAFS journey. This is going to absolutely change the way you mark, the way you provide feedback to your kids, the way you teach certain skills like glossary of keyword, pure paragraph, content to your kids. It's going to literally change the way you do things. So we only have 30 spots for this term. If you want to know more about that, you can head over to thelearnette.com/marking CAFS to find out. But in the meantime, please send me a DM about marking, about feedback, about what you do, because I'd really love to help you. I think it's something that is going to make a huge difference with what you guys, to also protect your time and wellbeing, to work more efficiently, but also more strategically. So thanks so much, guys. I hope you have a fantastic afternoon. I'll see you guys soon. Take care.